Recently I stumbled upon this clip of an ex-Mormon whistleblower calling out the church of $100 billion fraud. $100 billion? That's as rich as Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. That's more than Porsche, PayPal, or the London Stock Exchange. If this money is used for the right things, it could solve a lot of major problems. But that's the issue. If these insiders are correct, the money is being used for an entirely different purpose. Bailing out insurance companies, investing in giant tech stocks, purchasing shopping malls, buying up land.
They are the wealthiest single landowner in the United States.
Hang on, where do they get this money from? From the lay members of the church who are required to pay non-optional? This is where their money's going? And then this fund classifies themselves as a non-profit, which means they pay $0 in tax, but the regular person on minimum wage struggling to afford rent still has to pay tax to the government. Something doesn't add up here.
I thought I was going to work for a charity. I thought that's what my skills were going to do, was help build a charity and do good with things. I thought we were going to change the world. And we just grew the bank account.
This is David Nielsen, and he actually worked as a money manager for the Mormons, so he might know a thing or two. That was until he quit when he discovered what they were really doing with the money. I started digging, and I didn't have to do much to see that there's a lot of these whistleblowers coming forward now.
That is evil when you've got that amount of money not being deployed to help anyone who is in genuine need.
Why don't I see qualified donees for the Red Cross or the food bank?
They're just getting richer and richer and richer and not doing anything with the money.
When you build out these complex corporate structures, you do it for one purpose and one purpose only.
Do you think that this is a case of fraud?
Of course I do. Absolutely, it's fraud.
To understand what's going on here, you have to take a dive into the way the Mormon church works. No, this is not your traditional American mega church. This is America's giga church. All Mormon members have to follow a practice known as tithing. Here, every layperson has to contribute 1/10 of their income to the church. This money is meant to be used for the needs and the goals of the congregation, and tithing is non-optional.
Like the widow, if a destitute family is faced with the decision of paying their tithing or eating, they should pay their tithing. The bishop can help them with their food.
In total, the church receives about $7 billion a year from tithes. About $1 to $2 billion of this is stored away into a reserve fund run by the church called Ensign Peak. And this is where things start to get morally sketchy. The church has registered this reserve fund under the non-profit charity religious section. This is a section under the law where the government has said, we're not going to tax you because you're actually using this money for the good of society. And that's where, Houston, we have a problem. If they are using this money for the good of society, how could they have grown the fund to $100 billion in 2023 with just yearly tithes of $1 billion from 1997? Why are they bailing out insurance firms? Why are they major shareholders in large tech companies? How have they just bought a shopping mall? I mean, I'm not a genius, but this doesn't look like housing the homeless or caring for the sick. In fact, this reminds me more like the type of things you'd see in Warren Buffett's giant investment firm, where ironically, he's already bailed out banks and he already does own large tech stocks. Except the difference is Warren Buffett legally has to pay billions of tax each year, the Mormons not a single cent. Buffett said he's giving away every single dollar when he dies, but this Mormon fund, well, it just seems like it's going to grow into infinity. So I kept thinking, how do they get away with this? And that's when I found out about their hidden shell companies.
The Mormon church is in some money trouble for allegedly hiding just how much it has. With the church's approval, Ensign created 13 shell corporations to hide the church's billions so it wouldn't be tied back to the institution.
Those shell companies held stocks and bonds.
How can we trust an organization that's willing to behave this way?
Whoever structured the Mormon church's finances is like the accountant version of Stephen Hawking. Genius. He deserves not a Nobel Peace Prize, but maybe like an anti-Nobel Finance Prize. The church has set up their money where they've got these 13 shell companies. These shell companies are not actually real. They don't do anything. Their entire purpose is to hold billions of dollars worth of stocks and bonds. 32 billion to be exact. And then you peel back the covers and you see who really controls these shell companies. It's Ensign Peak, the Mormons' non-profits fund. It's smart because if you look at the fund itself, it looks like a legitimate non-profit, but then you zoom out and they actually own a bunch of shell companies that hold stocks and bonds. AKA, this is what a hedge fund would own. AKA, maybe they're not a non-profit like they say they are and should contribute back to society by paying some tax.
The Mormon church will have you to believe that it's a religion that dabbles in business, but the evidence clearly shows that they are a business dabbling in religion.
It's a large set of corporations that have as its sideline religion.
You might have encountered someone from the Mormon church through a simple door knock and them politely asking if they may leave you with their book. They want to get as many people reading the Book of Mormon as humanly possible, but there's one book that they want almost no human to read, and that's their own finances. I don't even think the SEC know truly where all of this money's going. It's all kept a big secret. But if we go by the accounts of these insiders, they say it's not being used in the way that most people think.
Ensign Peak's funds were never used for any charitable purpose. It's to my knowledge, the whole time I was there.
The church, compared to other religions, it's not a very charitable entity. It doesn't spend a lot of money out there. It doesn't create hospitals. It doesn't create social welfare. It doesn't, do soup kitchens.
This kind of gives us one answer why they keep their accounts so secret. Because maybe if the commissions knew everything, they would know it's more like a hedge fund, and then their prized possession, their tax-exempt status, would be lost.
The chief investment officer said that if we were to change and start reporting these securities in our own name, it would bring undue attention to the firm. And he said, Dave, we're going to lose our tax-exempt status.
So that's one potential reason for secrecy, but the second is something that would affect them so much worse. Imagine the Mormon congregation, the lay people who fund Ensign Peak. Imagine they found out where the money's going. Would a not well-off family keep donating 10% of their income to a church than invest in stocks and shopping malls? They might say, hang on, I'd rather just pay off my mortgage, pay off my credit card bills, and then make my own investments? And then just stop donating. They say don't bite the hand that feeds you. In this case, it's a weird analogy, but it's more like instead of not biting, just don't tell the hand what you're really doing with its money. But why? Why are they building this massive fund worth amounts that are hard to comprehend? I mean, they're a church, and they're not buying Ferraris and private jets, at least not to my knowledge. Now that I mention it, there might be some of that going on, I don't know. But the reason that said they're growing this fund is for something that you might not expect.
Did any of your former bosses explain how the money was going to be used?
The answer was always the second coming. And deep down, I think a lot of the employees really did believe that.
What do you think they're saving for?
I heard one explanation was, well, when the second coming of Christ comes, we need to have some money for that time.
The Christian faith has this belief that one day Jesus Christ will come back. I'm a Christian, I believe this too. What I don't believe is that Jesus will need us to have built this $100 billion fund for when he returns. The message of Jesus was always quite clear. Help people and do good, especially to the poor and to the needy. I don't recall anywhere in the Bible where it says, become rich beyond belief, do so in a way where you don't have to pay tax, or for the purpose of my second coming. In fact, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Jesus say, give to Caesar what is to Caesar? I've never accepted their invitation and read the Book of Mormon, I'm gonna be honest, but is this congruent with their faith? I don't know. Now, interestingly enough, the higher-ups at the Mormon church responded to these accusations in an interview with 60 Minutes. And it was weird because they basically indirectly admitted to everything.
How would you characterize how that money was used?
The church actually owned Beneficial Life, and fortunately, the church had the resources to bail out Beneficial Life during the financial crisis, 2008, 2009.
In the mall?
The mall was not a bailout. The mall was an investment.
And you are receiving returns on that
absolutely.
investment?
Yeah, we're buying stocks, bailing out insurance firms, making fake companies to hide financials. What are you going to do about it? Turns out that someone was willing to do something about it, and this time it wasn't someone with little resources or power. In early 2023, the SEC came knocking. Their findings shocked a lot of people, but confirmed the voice of these insiders. They saw that church leaders did in fact make 13 shell companies to avoid showing its full holdings. This amounted to $32 billion over nearly 20 years. And these shell companies were assigned a local phone number that would go directly to voicemail. This was obviously used as a way to make these companies seem more legit. And then the SEC gave them a punishment, which was basically just a slap on the wrist. They had to pay a $5 million fine and rearrange their shell company structure back to Ensign Peak. But they still kept their non-profit tax-exempt status, and they still don't have to disclose their dealings openly. A pretty good result for the church if you ask me. Now, I know what the response of some people is going to be. The Mormon church do use money to do good in society. I've seen it. And I want to be crystal clear that it is true that the church itself does do good works. And it's for this reason and many more that I have great respect for the Mormon faith and just God-fearing Christians in general. But this money used for good is from their checking accounts. This video is not about their checking accounts, it's about their non-profit reserve fund, Ensign Peak, where they save and invest money. And there's two things that are for sure. You can't be tax exempt if you're not using a reasonable portion of this funds for societal good. And second, you owe it to the donators of the money, the people who probably aren't that well off, to use it for the way in which it was intended.